Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Medical Talk. Today we have with us Dr. Fahya Naghman. Dr. Fahya is a graduate of Ziauddin Medical College in Karachi. She just completed her PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 exams and has a very successful blog on Instagram. It is one of my favorite Instagram blogs. She talks about medicine, lifestyle, fashion, and all of her hobbies. And she has been guiding a lot of medical students, including myself, about medical school, studies in general, and now recently she has been talking about the PLAB exams, and I think her videos are really helpful. So without further ado, we have with us Dr. Fahya. Dr. Fahya, maybe start the interview.
Hi, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for such kind words. I didn't think it would be this sweet, but no, you're very kind. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So I would like to start the conversation by talking about your early life a little bit. Where were you born and raised, and what did your early education look like?
So I was born in Karachi, but I've basically been raised all over. My dad was in the Air Force. So I primarily studied in the city school because it's available in all the cities in Pakistan. So yeah, my childhood was a bit scattered. It's all over, but it was amazing and I had the best time.
So I think a lot of people who have come on this podcast have talked about how they have moved different cities, and that's really interesting. It really helps you connect with people. So that's great. So Dr. Fahya, how did you get into medicine? When when you get out of A levels, you have a lot of options in front of you. So why did you go into the medical profession?
So medicine was for me like the only thing I ever considered doing. I don't know if it was parental pressure because I don't ever think my parents pressured me into med school. In fact, during my third and fourth year, I was really struggling because I was just having a lot of anxiety. I couldn't study properly, and my parents were like, "Just leave it. It's fine. We'll do something else." So there wasn't any familial pressure as such. But I always thought I was going to be a doctor, even as a little kid. And I think just generally it was a very automatic flow. I was good at sciences, I was really bad at math, and then I just opted for sciences, and I just knew that I had to become a doctor.
Perfect. So you just completed your house job from Ziauddin. So when you graduate, you have an option to switch to another hospital for your house job. Some people, for example, people who graduate from a public medical university go to a private setting. People from private settings go to public settings. So why did you continue with Ziauddin, and what differences do you think are there in the public and the private practices?
Well, to be very frank with you, I think Ziauddin was the easiest and like a no-brainer choice for me because already all the graduates from our university get an automatic spot in one of the 3 hospitals that Ziauddin's running. So with my merit, I ended up getting Clifton, which was closer to my house. So the commute was really easy. All of my friends were going there as well. And which I don't know if this is a very well-known fact or not, but Ziauddin actually has one of the best faculty of doctors. And there's just so much to learn. Of course, we don't have a great patient flow because it is a more expensive private hospital, but the amount of teaching you have, the standards are very comparable to what you experience in the US or the UK. And I feel like they really train you to become really, really good doctors, which is not just, prescribing the right medicine or doing the tests right. They also tell you how to conduct yourself, and they teach you how you can talk to patients. And, I just had an amazing time. And honestly, I did work in Jinnah as well as part of my elective back in third year, I think. And the amount of experience I gained from there was great, but I would pick Ziauddin over Jinnah anyway, because we had such hands-on learning experience and we had mentors on top of us who were guiding us throughout the way. It was just a very supportive environment all in all at Ziauddin. And comparing to a public sector hospital, I feel like that experience is also every medical student I suggest should at least have either an internship or an elective at such public hospitals, because the amount of patient flow you get, the amount of diseases you get to see, they're like things that you would only read about in textbooks. And I feel like that kind of exposure you don't get in private sectors, or even when you eventually move abroad. There's a very niche sort of like a collection of illnesses that those people would present with. But in the government sector in Pakistan, you have all kinds of traumas, you get all kinds of illnesses, every stage of every disease. And as a person who's there to learn, it's very cool,
Yeah.
if that is weird to say, but it's nice. So I feel like both the things are, one is training you to become a very polished doctor, and one is training you to become like a very worldly doctor. So they're very different. So they can't be compared.
Yeah, I think it's good to have an experience in both of the settings. The public has
Mm.
different advantages and the private has different
Yeah,
advantages. So
yeah,
that,
I 100% agree.
yeah. So you talked about mentors at Ziauddin. So a lot of medical students in Pakistan, they want to find mentors who can guide them through their career and through their journey. Who were your mentors in medical school or in your house job? And why, how important do you think mentors are?
So that's a very good question. Are mentors important? Yes, definitely. But I feel like we have a very distinct image of what a mentor would look like a maybe an old professor or an old doctor. No, your seniors can be your mentors. And this is the biggest tip, because I feel like a lot of people who message me asking me for help, the simplest answer I have for them is, why don't you just go ask your seniors? Because all of us have been through everything, and now I feel like I'm in a position to really help my juniors and help the community that I've built over Instagram, because I've gained this experience. But I am constantly reaching out to my own seniors, asking for advice for every single thing, because all of this is so new, everything is different. You think up med school, you come into med school and then you do 5 years and that's it, but there's just so much more about it. And even after graduation, you can't practice, you need to give exams, you need to get registered, and you're constantly looking for help. So I feel like your seniors can be the biggest resource. So you need to maintain cordial relationships with them, and also I feel like to you should become a mentor yourself as well. Not a mentor, or just at least someone really helpful that other people can feel comfortable coming and talking to you. And I feel like this is something that is lacking in Pakistanis a bit. We like to not share our knowledge, and we like to save our resources for ourselves, and we're a bit selfish. And I understand why. All of us really struggle to get to the place. We don't have it handed out to us as easily as other countries do. So we feel very protective over our resources and our links and our wo. But I feel like we should be good mentors to other people as well. And other than that, my mentors, I guess, would be um, my PGs that I was working in at the hospital. They really helped. Some of them have actually moved to the UK and they're still helping me now. Some foreign trained doctors. And I specifically say foreign trained doctors because they have really helped. Um, they've basically given us like a guidebook of how we can enter the foreign industry if that's what you want. So I had a couple of doctors who really helped me out with that as well. So I feel like mentorship is, you can find a mentor in anyone, even if you have a friend who's just done more than you and you're taking help from them, they can be a sort of mentor for you as well.
So, Dr. Fire, why did you choose to practice in the UK? When when you graduate, you have so many options. You have the USMLE, you have the PLAB, you have FCPS. So, why did you choose going to the UK?
So I don't know. Initially, my plan has always been to train from abroad and
Yeah.
then come back to Pakistan. And so I felt like out of the options that most commonly are taken, the US and the UK, I opted to go for the UK because, first of all, um, and these are very personal reasons. Of course, this might not matter to anyone. UK is like a 7-hour flight away from Pakistan. And
Yeah.
I find comfort in knowing that in case my family needs me, I can just take one flight and come back. The
Yeah.
UK uh, uh, life and work life balance is incredible. So in Pakistan, when I was doing my house job, I would do calls for 36 hours straight. So we were expected to come at 8 in the morning and then leave next day in the evening at 4. So that's a total of 36 hours. In the UK, if you did something continuous like that, they would give you a letter, send you home, and tell you to stay at home for 2 days, because it's illegal for you to work that many hours at a time, because they realize that when someone is working continuously for this long, they become dangerous to the patient. They can't work properly, and their work is not productive. So they have rules in place, um, so that you're not making mistakes,
Yeah.
and you're not overworked.
Yeah.
So they have great laws like that. You have Saturday Sundays off, which is incredible. Like, I haven't had a Saturday Sunday off in since third year of med school. I think we would have Saturdays as well, and even in house job, like Sundays on call was on. Their calls are like 12 hours compared to 36 hours here. And I think a lot of people opt to, and the training in now, so some disadvantages of training in the UK is that the UK training is much longer.
Yeah.
So if you're done with your residency in 3-4 years in the US, it will take 5 to 6 years in the UK. And that's because they have like their foundation years and all of that, and the process is a bit slow. You don't necessarily start with residency. You start with other non-training jobs and then you move into residency. Whereas in the US, you directly go into residency and then you start from there. So it's a bit longer, but I didn't mind that much just because I, first of all, love the country. I love traveling there. Europe is so accessible, and you can like literally take a train to Germany, you can take a train to Italy, a train to France, and then you can travel a lot, which is important, which is, I really enjoy that. I thought it was really cool. And I feel like another thing is doctors in the US are getting paid more than doctors in the UK. But if you take the per hour wage of each doctor, it's exactly the same. So residents are getting paid exactly the same throughout their training in both countries, except in the UK, because you have time on your hands, you can do these extra shifts known as locums, which are basically you filling for another doctor at another hospital, and the per hour rate is a premium, so it's higher, and then you can save up like that. So I felt like the UK was more comfortable. I could also do my blog alongside my training because I get time off. And I felt like if the total amount, even if it's taking 4 years here, you're working 80 to 90-hour weeks in the US compared to 40 hours in the UK. So I thought that was incredible. You can have a family, you can give time to your children, you can give time to your home, your friends, you can travel. And in the US, even though it's shorter, it's just so rigorous that I felt like I wasn't made for it. Because like I said, I really like to strike a balance because I want to prioritize my mental health, and I thought the UK was overall better for that. And monetarily, I feel like at a certain level, all the doctors are making the same money. Yes, of course, as a consultant in the US, you're making much more money than a consultant in the UK. But then, you can always move out. You can go to the UAE, you can come back to your home country or whatever. Those plans, I feel like, very personal to each person. But other than that, I thought the UK had a really good balance.
Okay.
And it's cheaper to apply to the UK than the US.
Yeah, it's a better work-life balance as well. You have taken the PLAB 1 exam and you've taken the PLAB 2 exams. So, first of all, I'll talk about the PLAB 1 exam. So, for people who don't know, can you give a brief summary of what the PLAB 1 exam is exactly? And then we can talk about how you prepared for it.
Sure. So the PLAB 1 exam is it's one way to enter into the UK medical field. So to practice in the UK, you have to become part of the NHS and you have to become part of the General Medical Council. And PLAB 1 is the first entry level theoretical exam that you need to give in order to be eligible for the practical part, and then eventually your license to be able to work in the UK. PLAB 1 basically requires you to have had your IELTS done, and the IELTS are also like academic IELTS, not the normal ones. So you have to do IELTS academia, and you need to get a certain specific score that is mentioned on the GMC's website. I can't recall right now, but you need to pass that score in order to be able to sit for your PLAB.
Okay, so do you need to take the OET exam as well? Or is it like either or with the IELTS and the OET?
So it's either or. Yeah, you can either take IELTS or you can either take OET. Okay. It depends on your personal preference. It depends on your financial situation. One is more expensive, one is cheaper, one is harder to pass, one is easier to pass. So it's all dependent on you.
Okay. So how did you prepare for this PLAB 1 exam? And the biggest question that students have is that when do we start preparing?
So I always tell the people who message me, okay, just do med school as med school comes. If you're not doing the USMLE, of course, that's a whole different ballgame. But for PLAB, you need a maximum of 4 months to prep. It's all whatever you've studied in your med school. And I did it with my house job. So I was working full time while I started prepping but also because, I think it's not fair to say it's very easy to study with your house job, because my house job at the time, we were like in the middle of a pandemic. We had 3 patients in the ward at one time. So it was easier for me to prepare this way. But I feel like if you give yourself sufficient time during your house job, you can very easily manage to study for it and pass it as well.
Okay.
Other than that, you can take, like I chose to take subscriptions of different apps. So there are apps known as Plabbable or apps known as PLAB keys, and there are gems and certain resources that I frequently talk about on my blog as well, that you can opt for, that help you prepare. You do not need to worry about it during med school. Med school is already so stressful. And like you said, we already have so many pressures. I feel like, especially for the UK students, just relax, know that UK is the place you want to go to, and then you can just relax, do your med school as it comes, pass all of your exams, because getting distinctions in your exams and having a good GPA is also very important for your CV and for your like generally for admissions. So I feel like we should focus on that. And then when your house job starts, or once you've cleared, because the only way you can give your PLAB is after med school, you can't give it before. Yeah, so you have to finish med school, and then you can either take a break, study for it, and then start house job if they're starting late, or you can just do it during house job, take a break, take a leave, and then study for it during that time. So there's no need to worry about during the first 5 years.
Yeah, that's a relief. I guess a lot of people will be after hearing that. So house job is compulsory for the UK, right? So for the US, Emily, you do not need that clinical experience, but for the UK, is it compulsory?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not mandatory.
Okay.
So there's two ways you can go about it. You can either, essentially in the UK, you have 2 years of house job, and they call it foundation years. So you have foundation year 1 and foundation year 2. So what Pakistani students can do is they can either not do house job in Pakistan and then try and apply for foundation year 1 positions in the UK, or they can do their house jobs and then only apply for foundation year 2 positions in the UK. So you will only have 1 year of training in the UK after you've done 1 year of house job here. The trouble with that is foundation year 1 positions are already filled by their own students. So there are very few places left for international students. So I would recommend you doing whatever you can here, do your house job here. It saves money. You're living with your parents. It's saving cost. You're getting a lot of experience. The NHS is a bit strict and underfunded. In Pakistan, I feel like, though we have our own set of problems, I feel like when you're in your own home country, it's easier to communicate. It makes you a more confident doctor if you've already had experience back home. And then when you go there for your second year, you already know a lot of the stuff, and they really provide all the guidance. So I feel like it's smarter to do your house job, but it's not mandatory. You can always apply for foundation year 1 positions there, even though they're very hard to get.
Okay, that makes sense. That's I did not know about that. I think a lot of my friends don't know. I think there is a general conception that house job is necessary to for one.
Oh, 100%. I didn't know this either. I actually very recently found out in one of the Q&As I was doing on my Instagram, where I said, it's mandatory to do it. And then someone corrected me and I looked into it, and well, now I know, and now you guys know as well.
Yeah, I think it's a wise decision to do it here, as you said.
I think so as well. I would highly recommend doing house job in your home country.
So you talked about Plabbable and other resources. So how much time, approximately, do you need to complete those Q banks?
To be honest, it depends from person to person. How much can you study a day? Personally speaking, I can't study for 3 months, 8 hours a day, every single day. I feel like it's too much. So I always start a bit slow, and then towards the end, I really gear up, and then I'm studying like 8 to 10 hours a day. So it depends on the person, and it depends on the amount of time you have. I feel like when you're in a crunch and when you know you have to do something in a certain time period, you just make it happen. But if you can, and if you plan it in a certain way where you have like 3-4 months to practice all of these, then you can space them out. You can do like 5 questions a day, 10 questions a day, and then eventually you can repeat the question bank. I had people who gave the PLAB with me who had done the question banks like twice. I had barely managed to finish it one time, and then so I feel like it depends on how you want to study for it.
I think it differs from person to person and their study style.
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So after the PLAB 1 exam is complete and you've passed the exam, you move on to the PLAB 2 exam. So the PLAB 2 exam is more clinical based. I recently watched your video regarding that. So how do you exactly study for that exam? You mentioned an academy in that video. So if you could mention that, where did you start? How much time did it take?
So PLAB 2 exam, actually, I'm just going to completely go off track and tell you guys my sad story of my PLAB 2. I actually had my date for my PLAB 2 set in September of 2021. And I was going to give it before I got married, which was in December of 2021. And I was very happy. I had my whole month planned. I had spoken to doctors in the UK. I was going to do my elective. Unfortunately, Pakistan was still in the red list at the time, and I would have had to do 2 weeks of quarantine, and it was costing a lot more than I had anticipated. So I decided to move my date to after my exam, because obviously I was getting married, so there was a lot of stress regarding that as well. And the red list thing was just nowhere to be found. And believe me when I say I cancelled my date, and the next day Pakistan was out of the red list.
Oh my God.
But it was, yeah, so it was, I was like, what the heck just happened? I had already had a huge gap. So remember, I've done my house job in my house job was 2020 to 2021. So I had been waiting and prepping for PLAB 2, and I was trying to do it myself. Actually, us waqt I thought I was just going to study on my own, figure it out, and then once I got my visa, then I would go to the academy or whatever. I wasn't really sure, but I'm glad that I moved it, because then I researched more on it. All of my friends went and they gave it, and they were really helpful with their tips and all. So then I eventually got my date in May. So at that point, I decided to go for the academy. The way I went about it was, see, the academy is very expensive. Considering that you're already paying almost £1,000, well, it's £879, but almost £1,000 for your exam, then ticket to Manchester, then your visa fee, then staying there, eating there. Like, UK is an expensive country, and especially for students on a budget, like we barely made any money during our house job, right? So all of my savings were like just going down the drain. So academy was a decision that I took. Like, I thought about it and I realized that I couldn't manage without it. So I went for it, but I don't know if I would recommend it to people. You can, there are other ways to go about it. I feel like Pakistani students, all of the Pakistani students who were there, were just so, they were so inherently smart. They knew how to talk. And the whole thing about PLAB 2 is, if you know how to talk to your patient, you don't need to, it's important to diagnose them, but if you don't diagnose them, you don't have time or whatever, as long as you know how to talk to your patient, you're calm, collected, and confident, you've aced it. So I feel like academy is important. I gave myself around 2 months to prep for it with the academy. Academy is like 12 days long. And then obviously, because it's me, my visa didn't come until 10 days before my exam. So my whole plan was ruined again. And I left for Manchester 10 days before my exam. And during those 10 days, then I just went to the academy, practiced on their practical models, practiced with people there, one-on-one. And yeah, then I just gave my exam. It sounds really easy, but PLAB 2 is a difficult exam. So if you feel like you need the help and you feel like you can afford to get the academy, definitely go for it. But if you can't, don't ever think that it is mandatory or necessary. It's really not. We're a very smart community of people, and I feel like Pakistani students are, mashallah, I've compared them with other people, and all of my Pakistani friends, everyone from my college, people who I made friends with, all of them passed, mashallah. So there's no need for an academy as such. I don't think even if you have a gap, you need an academy. The reason I opted for an academy was because I was hopping between different countries. I was here, then I was in Dubai, and I've just been moving around a lot. And I think at that point, I decided that I needed some structure. And the academy provided me with that structure. But to be very honest, my academy, I did not take in-person classes. I decided to take online classes, which are like Zoom classes, and you're studying there. I was paying attention. I was really studying during those classes, but I would just watch the videos and I'd be like, "Ye to main khud bhi kar sakti thi." Like, why? Like, okay, I know this chapter, so maybe I'll skip 2 hours of this class, or I would have to do like household chores whilst I was doing it. So I feel like even then, if you get access to the scripts that they provide, somehow, like, you can ask your seniors, there's certain groups on Facebook. I feel like this is not ethical, but I mean, everyone does it, where they have scripts on certain groups on Facebook where they share academy scripts with you. I feel like if you can just learn those and revise those, you will still be set. And if your clinical acumen is strong, if you know that you're a good doctor, and you know that even right now, after 10 years of your practice, a patient comes in front of you, you know what to do with it, if you are someone like that, then I feel like academy, you can do without an academy as well.
Makes sense. That's great.
Yeah.
Also, so after you're done with your PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 exams, and what is the process after that? If you could summarize that a little bit.
Yeah. So since I'm going through the process, I'm just at a certain level. So I'll just tell you till up until that point, and then maybe we could do another round of this, and then I'll tell you the remainder of it later. So after you pass your PLAB 2, what you have to do is you have to get your medical diploma, which is our degree, the MBBS degree from our universities, verified by ECFMG. ECFMG is a verification body, and they basically just want to see that your certificates are not fake. So they will send. So you pay them, you upload your diploma on their website, and then they send it to your university, asking them if this student was in fact already there. And then they're verified by EPIC, which is an entity that verifies every certificate, and then they send it to GMC for you.
Okay.
So right now I'm in the process of getting that done. My diploma has I just got an email yesterday saying my diploma was verified, and now it has been sent to GMC. And I opted to have a tracking system. So now I can see if GMC has gotten it or not. After I'm done with that, I'm going to start I already have made my CV sort of and my account on this website called Track Jobs. And NHS Jobs. So right now NHS is also between different websites. So right now we're using Track Jobs as the primary portal through which you apply for jobs in the UK. So what happens is you make your account, you put your credentials there. They have a different section for CV. So you don't need to make your own CV. Track Jobs has a whole template that they require you to fill. Uske andar you need to explain what month you were doing what. Any clinical gaps, you can explain what your clinical gap is and why you had to take a gap during this time. And once you have done all of that, you can send it to the positions that you want. So then once I'm done with my GMC, once I'm done with my EPIC verification, and I'm done with my GMC registration and I have my license, I will then use the Tracks app, the Tracks website to send out my CV to all the places that I want to apply for jobs in.
Yeah, I think
it's a bit complicated. Even right now, I'm like a bit like, ab kya karna hai? But as you're doing it, the things come up. You can ask people, or there are very helpful pages and websites that I always look into whenever I want to, whenever I'm feeling confused and I don't know what to do. I just go through videos on YouTube. I go through websites and seek in what the next step is going to be.
Yeah, I think there's this page called Road to UK. I think that's really helpful. I've been
oh my god, so helpful. Yeah. I watch their videos all the time. They do such good work. There's also another one called Nasir's Journey. Okay. It's by Dr. Nasir, who I think was a student in Bakai, and it took him 6 years to complete his PLAB 1 and PLAB 2. And now, mashallah, through all the struggles, and the struggles were not that he wasn't smart, it's just that he kept getting rejected for his visa. Which is also a thing that Pakistani students face because our passport is useless. Yeah. And we really, it's so problematic having our passport and the kind of restrictions that Western countries put on us for no reason. Yeah. So he kept getting rejected, and now he's put a whole blog that has the answer to every question that you can think of. Like literally type the question, how weird it is, and Nasir's Journey would have answered that already. So that's a very good resource as well.
Yeah. I think it's very unfortunate the kind of problems that Pakistani or students have to face because of restrictions. Yeah. So moving on, do you think that international electives are better for getting a good job in the UK, or are local electives all right?
Oh, specifically for the UK, there's no need for an international elective. If you have it, so there are two types of electives. One would be during, like you said, what you're talking about is during your med school when you get a little break where you can go out and do an elective. So I was rejected. My visa was rejected, even though I had two electives lined up, and I ended up not doing an international elective. I just did something back in Pakistan. And I spoke to a couple of people about it, a couple of doctors in the UK as well, and they said that any elective that you do during your house job doesn't count. Of course, it's good for your CV, but it won't make you stand out. It's not necessary. That's not something they look at. What is important, and so I feel like you can save money here, do an elective in Pakistan in a field, for example, emergency medicine, because emergency medicine is like they have a lot of vacancies in emergency medicine in the UK. So if you've done an elective here, you can really use that as leverage to get a job in ER. But if you want to do an elective that will make you stand out in the UK, you should do that after your house job. After when you're there for your PLAB 2, make sure that you take that trip and really make use of it. So you should have an elective lined up. Okay, I will give my PLAB 2 and then immediately I'm going to start my elective. I'll do 4 weeks of this. And whilst you do your elective, you can in fact start applying for jobs already from the UK. So you can have networks there. Like when you're working in a hospital, if they have a vacancy and you're working there, they will definitely go and prefer you over anyone else because they've seen how you work. Obviously, you have to be a good doctor for that.
Yeah.
But so this kind of elective, I feel like if you could save your money during your 4th, 5th year and utilize that later with your PLAB 2 and get an elective then, nothing like it. I feel like that's great. And even if you can't do that, because I was unable to do that, as you can already know, I have a very bad luck when it comes to these things. And I was in the UK for a very long time trying to figure out my electives. It didn't work out, but I still network with doctors. And in fact, moving back to a question you asked me about mentors and how people should approach their mentors internationally and stuff, how I did it was there's certain Facebook groups on just IMGs and IMGs working in the UK, doctors working in the UK. There's one called IMGs. It's just called IMGs. One is called APPNA. And there are these huge communities of doctors working all over the world. And they're Pakistani Desi doctors. And their aim is to help new people coming into the industry because they've seen how Indians help their juniors and they've seen how Bengali people help each other. And South Indians have very strong communities and Pakistani people like that. So these doctors are aiming to really help newcomers come into the international medical field. Yeah. And so I posted about getting an elective there. A couple of helpful doctors replied and I just DM'd with them. And this was back in my 4th year when I was supposed to go for my elective. And I didn't end up going because I didn't get my visa, but I maintained contact with them throughout this year, saying good morning, no, not good morning, well, Eid Mubarak and things like that, just keeping in touch. And by like just having a nice conversation with them, I was able to get an elective with one of these doctors this time as well. And that didn't work out because of its own reasons. But this is how you can maintain a professional relationship. I would not message them about anything. I would not bother them at all. They're not a Q&A, we're not having a Q&A session. So I would just tell them, sir, this is my, I've done this. These are my credentials. These are my marks. I'm coming to the UK for my PLAB 2. Would your hospital be open to have a student for clinical electives? And then they would send me an email of their HR person. And then it was my job to communicate with the HR person. It's not their job to make sure that I get an elective, right? So please don't. So I feel like a lot of the times, students who are like confused and unsure, unko lagta hai ek banda hai, so I'm just going to ask this person every single thing. I feel like that's not the way to go about it because there's a way you conduct yourselves, especially with doctors who they're working in the UK, they're busy doctors, they're very senior to us, and they demand a certain level of respect. So once you have a single lead, any small lead, you can go from there. And another thing that I did was because all the hospitals are basically made up of Pakistani and Indian doctors, most of the faculty is. So I looked up a hospital that I really wanted to work in. I went to their faculty page, saw all the doctors who were Desi working in that hospital, decided to send all of them mass emails because the emails of the doctors are mentioned on the website. And if they're not, it's mostly something like @nhs.net or something like that. So I decided to send everybody a mass email saying, I'm a Pakistani student, I'm in this year and I've done this and I would really like an elective. And believe me, 3 doctors replied and I had 3 electives.
Wow.
From this only. Now it's really shameful that I couldn't go to a single one of them. I just wasn't in my luck to, go for my electives, but it's really that easy. And people really ask me how you get electives, how you approach office. Just approach people, just hustle. This is what you should do. Yeah. If you like, for example, if you want to work with Dr. Nasir from the blog, add him on Facebook. Maybe try DMing him saying, sir, I'm looking for an elective. Can you help me out? Maybe he'll message. If he doesn't, who cares? Right? So you just see where you want to work, which hospital, which field, see if there's a desi doctor there and pull the desi card and tell them that you're from Pakistan. Maybe it works.
I think it's very important to network, and especially with
Oh,
LinkedIn
yeah.
and Twitter now, if
Yeah.
contacting doctors is very easy. They do reply because they're very helpful and they realize the importance of
Yeah.
mentorship, and they are very helpful.
Yeah.
It's upon us to
Yeah.
actually hustle, as you said, and message them, ask them for opportunities, and you will get opportunities. Talking about mentors and electives, what is the importance of letters of recommendation? Do we need to upload any letters of recommendations when we're applying to the UK for a job?
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm still in the process. I'm not 100% like into it. I haven't done anything yet. But from what I know, you have to apply 2 letters of recommendation. One has to be from a doctor who you trained under, so someone from your house job that you've had a good rapport with, someone who's been your mentor or who's guided you or who has seen you work really well. So you need to approach them and ask them if you can put them as your reference.
Yeah.
And then another could be any doctor. It could be someone from your med school, or it could be someone from the elective that you've done in the UK. So those actually, a letter of recommendation coming from that doctor would actually be really, really good, because obviously if the UK is looking into all of your references and if one is from the UK only, it just adds like a little star to your CV.
So I wanted to talk a bit about research and audits. So what is the importance of research and audits when applying to the UK?
Okay, so the publications and research factor is more playing into the US than the UK. But I'm not going to be casual enough to say that it doesn't matter for the UK. Obviously, if you have something in your CV and it's something you can put for it, and if you have publications in international journals, not local journals, not the ones we have here, ones that are internationally published, then of course it's going to be good for you. Personally speaking, I don't have a single publication, and this is something that I will work on now, because I know that a lot of people have publications, multiple publications, and I don't want to be lacking in that field. So I want to at least have one publication or at least a couple of researches underway, just so that I can put it on my CV. So that my CV, because you see, when you're thinking about these things, think about it like how a person from India who has 10 recommendations and you 10 publications, and you who've had none are competing for the same position. Obviously the better choice is the guy who's had multiple publications, just because it doesn't make him a better doctor, but it just adds something to his CV, right? It shows that he's done something and he's involved in these things. And also, right, these days medicine is moving sort of away from just being able to practice as a good doctor, and it's moving towards showing what you can do to keep up with the modern medicine these days. So publications and audits and all of these things really play into all of that.
Moving on, I think all over the
Yeah.
world, medical students face burnout and they find it very difficult to maintain a work-life balance. So how do you think
Yeah.
you can manage that? Because you have a blog on Instagram as well. You collaborate with different brands and you talk to your Instagram community, and you manage everything alongside that. So how do you manage that, and what is your advice to medical students to at least lessen the burnout?
So actually, one of the ways I coped with my burnout was through my blog. I never took it as a responsibility. Well, now I feel responsible because we have such a huge community of people. It's almost 50,000 people, 60,000 people, I think. So I feel the responsibility and the burden now. But at the time, I felt like I was losing my personality to med school. We were studying, we would go to uni, and to be honest, my university didn't have an amazing student life either. So it wasn't like we were having a lot of fun sitting on campus singing and sitting at the cafeteria eating. We actually had a very terrible campus. So we would be done by 4 and we couldn't wait to get out of there. So by 4 we'd be home. Then you take a nap, you study, you eat. And I felt like my entire life was just getting monotonous, and I was so bored. And the only thing that would bring me joy was having my outfits done for the day. Okay, oh, I'm going to wear this tomorrow, so I'll set everything out. And I used to be very prim and proper going to uni, and that was just something I enjoyed doing for myself. And when I got compliments from like friends and people in uni, I thought at the time Instagram was like, influencer culture was really starting, and I used to really look up to some Instagrammers, and I thought, why don't I start something? And even right now, I think I have one of the slowest growing Instagrams on the platform, but I'm okay with it because I
And
don't make
that's
it a
good.
response. I don't make it a burden.
Yeah.
So this was the way I coped with my burnout. And when I get messages telling me how, people showed my blog to their parents, and that's how parents of girls decided that they would let their daughter get into med school as opposed to someplace else. Or when people tell me that they joined med school because of me, or they passed their PLAB because of my video, these things are so rewarding that now I feel like I have a responsibility and a duty towards my community to produce content. But with all of that, burnout is so real. Burnout and imposter syndrome, I feel like, are just the worst enemy of any med student and any student. Um, and we really need to take some time out for ourselves. I know that in med school it's like shuru se padho, kitabe badi books, study all of them, read all of them, khatam karo. I remember my mom used to say, oh, my friends who's become doctors now, they would not take their head out of the book and they would only study. I never did that. I never did that. I would literally, my studying style is I watch videos more than I read books. So I feel like a lot of the big books like Robin and Rubin and Big Gray's Anatomy and all, I did not go over those books. I haven't done those. I used to watch videos. I used to watch Dr. Najib's videos. I used to watch Geeky Medics videos and other videos on YouTube. And those were the channels that I followed. And I would study like a good few days or a month before my exam, like small exams. Obviously for profs and stuff, then you have to study, but I wouldn't be the kind of person who was studying all the time. I would study really, really well for my exam, and I made sure that I had a good time during uni. I made sure that there were plans that I was going to. I did not compromise on like family time and vacation time just because I felt like I needed to study. And I feel like that really played into how good my experience was in med school, because I made sure I prioritized having a good time as well. And obviously then all of that was documented on my blog, and I won't say that I was a bad student. I wasn't. I used to get good grades. I used to pass all my, I never failed any exam. I never repeated any year, but I made sure that I prioritized mental health as well. Never ever take yourself and your mental health and your fun for granted, because you will be studying. I have finished my med school started in 2014. It's now 2022 and I'm still studying. So if you, it's not like you will study for 5 years and then you're good to go. No, you will be studying your entire life. So if you have like a dinner you have to get to, go to that dinner. If you family is planning a vacation, take 3 days off and go on that vacation. And that's my best advice that I can give everybody.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, because you need to prioritize your family and your personal time as well, and what you like, your hobbies.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Dr. Fahya, my last question is that how do you see the medical education and medicine, the practice 50 years from now?
Oh, that's a heavy-handed question. And it's so strange to ask that question for me because I haven't even gotten into real training yet. But I feel like 50 years from now, so funnily, I'll just tell you an anecdote. A lot of people used to say, okay, after a while, general surgeons would be obsolete because computers and robots would take over, AI would take over surgery. And this was said 50 years ago, and it's still being said. And I feel like it will be said 50 years from now as well. But and maybe AI technology is great, but at the end of the day, I don't know if that's me being very narrow-minded or me being very traditional, but I feel like you can't replace a doctor with AI. So medicine will still be medicine, and but what I see in the future is a lot more technological advancements, like big MRI machines, big CT machines that are so unpredictable. A lot of the times in our hospital, a CT machine would break and we would have to transport patients to other hospitals to get CT scans and things like that. I feel like those kind of technologies would be more streamlined, easily accessible. We could take it to the patient's bedside. Like now we can take X-ray machines to the patient's bedside and things like the things that make the patient's life easier and the doctor's extra burdens easier would be great. And secondly, I feel like now doctors are doing more administrative work. So everything was computerized. We're putting histories in computers, we're putting drugs in computers and all of that. I really hope that 50 years down the line, all of that finishes and they get someone to do it, because doctors are already taking care of like 50 patients in one ward. plus all of their histories, plus all of their follows, plus every single drug, and the computers are obsolete and the software is crap, and all we're trying to do is refresh before the light goes, otherwise everything's going to get deleted. So I really hope 50 years from now we are not struggling with any of that, and that's my prayer and wish. That's all.
Yeah, I hope the things that really
Yeah.
need sorting out get sorted out.
Yes, I hope so as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faya, and thank you for coming. It was a pleasure having you here, and I hope that we can have you here again sometime soon after you've gone to the UK, inshallah.